Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, where each episode we bring you a brand new interview with one of the film industry's top directors, conducted by one of their peers. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on Google Play Music, iTunes, Stitcher, or on our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/thedirectorscut. This episode takes us behind the scenes of the newest film by director Mel Gibson, Hacksaw Ridge. The film tells the remarkable true story of Desmond T. Doss, a World War II Army medic who became the first conscientious objector to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. The story follows Doss, played by Andrew Garfield, from boot camp where he is ostracized and nearly jailed for refusing to bear arms, to the Battle of Okinawa, where he proves his heroism by saving 75 soldiers from the front lines without ever firing a single shot. Mr. Gibson's directorial credits include the feature films The Man Without a Face, The Passion of the Christ, Apocalypto, and Braveheart, for which he won the Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture, and was nominated for the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Feature Film. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Gibson discussed the challenges of making Hacksaw Ridge with director John Polson. Mr. Polson is a fellow actor and director from Australia, where Gibson grew up. He also directed the feature films Hide and Seek and Swim Fan. Their conversation covers why Gibson finally agreed to direct the film after being offered the script 3 times over a 10-year period, how he staged the battle scenes on an Australian dairy farm the size of a football field, and his intention for parts of the film to visually investigate the space between the man and the bullet.
Thank you, guys. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Mel Gibson, welcome. How about another round of applause for this guy? I have to confess, I saw the film for the first time right now, so I'm still recovering. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and hats off to you, Mel. Just to kick off, let's rewind. 10 years ago, Apocalypto.
Yeah.
And how did you come across Hacksaw Ridge?
Well, first I was almost late because I was doing something very important. I was videotaping Vince Vaughn watching a Cubs game, and I think they're up 5 or 6 to 1 on Cleveland. So
Yes.
It looks like they're going to bring it home. But Vince's hopes could still be dashed to the carpet. We don't know. How did the script come across? Well, it was given me by the producers who had actually been riding this Bronco for about 15 years, David Permit and Bill Mechanic, a producer who's not afraid to get his hands dirty, and he deemed to make it in Australia.
So that was before you were attached? That was the plan to produce it in Australia?
I think so, yeah.
And I read somewhere that you were offered the film a couple times.
Yeah, in the last 10 years. I saw the script 3 times.
And so what changed?
I don't know. Sometimes it just enters you. It resonates all of a sudden in a different kind of way. And I think perhaps Robert Shankin, the writer, had maybe done another couple of drafts, and it just kind of hit me the right way. And I thought, it's a really worthwhile story to tell. And
it was this, I'm just curious, it was the same draft that you were sent a couple times, or it had changed over the years?
I could not tell you.
Okay, just the same project.
No, I read a lot of...
So eventually you took a read of it and it connects with you.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, obviously, everybody here knows your body of work, incredible body of work. You come at it, as an actor, do you feel like, do you need to identify with the lead character? Is that what it was about this script, or it was more the story? What was it about the story that grabbed you?
Yeah, it's the story, and I think that the story is central to the lead character. It's all about him. It's all about who he is, intrinsically who he is, and who Desmond Doss was a guy of incredible, moral courage and faith and unshakable, conviction, who did something incredible. He's an ordinary man doing extraordinary things in incredibly difficult circumstances, and this. That's the makings of a really true hero story. Is the pinnacle of heroism, what he did. So,
was he a character you were aware of before you read the script?
No, I never heard of him before. I read the script, yeah.
And so, I know there was a documentary written, how much of the film, I mean, it felt so detailed and blow by blow, frankly, to me, and I'm sure people here agree, it's sort of pitch perfect. I mean, is this stuff that you and the writers embellished, or was a lot of this really documented?
More of it's true than not. And of course, to make anything cinematically compelling, you may stretch it here and there, but it's not overtly stretched, you know.
So a lot of the episodes are just, you know, straight out of what actually happened.
Or they're based in truth for some reason. I mean, Desmond did, people said that didn't happen with the grenade. It did. He stepped on a grenade to save his buddies and took the shrapnel. He was that kind of guy, just selfless. And I had to pull back on how heroic he really was, because after he gets hit and he's being dragged off on a stretcher, he sees another guy who's shot, and he figures, well, that guy's worse than me, so he jumps off. He ministers to that guy's wounds, patches him up, sticks him on his own stretcher, and they run off with that guy because it's thick, and he crawls back like 300 yards and gets shot up by some snipers and stuff. It was crazy, you know? So, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's Monty Python, right? It's the Black Knight. It's like, enough, or you've done enough, you know? But if you put that in the film, people would have gone, ah. So you had to draw the line at fact is stranger than fiction.
So I'm curious about the process of taking it from the script you read to the script you shoot. Obviously, I mean, I know Andrew Knight came on and did a pass of the script.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Andrew was great. Robert Schenken's script was already pretty good. I had tears, salty tears on page 54, and then, you know, just to actually kind of massage it a little bit more, to work in the themes of PTSD and Hugo's character. Right. You know, we got Andrew Knight into it, and we rewrote scenes throughout, and we changed the tone of some things.
But structurally, it was always pretty much what we saw?
It was always 2 acts,
right.
Which is unusual. I mean, it's weird. It's almost like 6 acts. It's 2 acts, but each act has 3 sub-acts.
Right.
It's an interesting thing.
So it was about, with Andrew Knight, it was about working with you and sort of bringing out what was already there and really making it...
Yeah, we massaged it, we changed it. You know, somebody had to create what the battles actually look like. That wasn't, you know, written down like this happens, then this happens. The battle happens, you know, and it had something, but, you know, we got specific with that. You have to plan and execute a sequence of events that makes sense on some level, strategically. That's understandable, that's clear. It's always important to be clear in these situations. Yeah. You know, screen direction's important and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, within that clarity, then you can wreak havoc and make chaos.
Yeah, because I'm curious about that. What I found with the battle sequences, they were incredibly chaotic, but also very detailed. It wasn't like just craziness. It felt very choreographed in a good way, and each beat had its right place. And is that in the script for you? Is that in the edit room?
Well, that's not in the script. You fashion that yourself. That's what a director does. You know, he gets in and he fashions the script. I do storyboards. I visualize what's going on and then play it out in some way. But it's kind of like a symphony. I mean, it has movements. You know, the first battle scene is different from the second battle scene, is different from the third battle scene. One has no music, some has music, and there are other changes too. But you know, the last one, for example, is practically lyrical. So it's you know, you have to not do the same thing or you go mad. But so you know, it takes a little planning, and of course, you don't do these things alone. You need the cooperation of everyone. You know, the whole crew and every department, and the actors and the stunt guys and the special effects guys and everything else.
So it's storyboarded. The battle scenes are pretty, and you stick pretty closely to the storyboard.
No,
you have a plan and you change it.
You have a Bible that you can stick to, and I get those things. But if I can get more stuff, I go for more stuff. Anything I can get that sort of like rings my bell, and try this, try that. And sometimes you have ideas on the spur of the moment, and it's, you know, it throws everything into havoc because, we don't have time. This is an independent film. It's not like a big studio film. This is like an indie film.
It looks like a huge studio film.
We got a lot of bang for our buck. I mean, this was 59 days schedule.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I was tired. And 59 day schedule and then like $40 million, which is pretty good for this. I think it looks like 100. But it's the people you have around you, and the crews in Australia, and the actors and the stunt guys and all those departments were slick.
I totally agree. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
What about the casting? So how did that happen? When did Andrew come on?
No, Andrew wanted to do it. He read it. He was moved like I was, and he's when I saw that he wanted to do it, I was all on board. I thought, that guy's amazing. I've seen his work before. And not the Spider-Man stuff, although I thought he was good in that. But, this was a chance for him to play a superhero and not wear any spandex.
He is incredible in this film because he's just so real and so vulnerable.
He's real.
And believable in what is, as even the characters say in the film, kind of an unbelievable situation. This guy shows up to war not wanting to shoot a gun, and he totally sold it.
Well, he inhabited the character perfectly, or the character inhabited him. I don't know which, but he gets to a kind of a high level of interchange there. I don't know. It's almost like seance-like, but he went to Desmond's farm, and he, held on to his tools and asked Desmond to help him and all this kind of stuff. And he can't, when he arrived, and he's from England, this kid. He's an English boy.
Oh, I didn't realize
So the accent's amazing. And even we took it to Lynchburg, and they were like, wow, they didn't even have a gripe. He did a really excellent, so did all the crew. Vince was amazing.
Yeah, Vince, I was curious about Vince because he shows up and it's not exactly the sort of, obviously everybody loves Vince Vaughn, but, it's not exactly the sort of film you think of Vince Vaughn in, and yet he is so well used. He's very believable in the genre or the style of film, but he also plays some pretty subtle but great comedy.
Absolutely.
In some of that stuff.
Well, he's loaded. He comes loaded with his own qualities. Humor and wit are intrinsic to who Vince is, and intelligence, too. And I think you see the intelligence. He doesn't even say anything. Sometimes it's just the look. But he was able to make a very subtle transition, as was Luke, from them being kind of bullies, and they kind of make this change. And sometimes it's wordless. It's just, but you get it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I loved about it was all of the peripheral characters, for want of a better word. Mm-hmm. Teresa Palmer, Hugo, Rachel Griffiths, Sam Worthington, obviously. Yeah. It was just kind of perfect. And I gotta believe, and you're probably going to be humble about it, but your background as an actor, you're working closely. You're not just sitting back rolling the camera. I'm assuming you're in there, not exactly doing it for them, but working pretty closely on exactly what you feel like the scene needs.
Well, I think, I have a shape that I like, but basically, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And let someone work, give them some air, and back off. There's very little adjustment I have to do, particularly with actors and actresses of this caliber. So I was fortunate. If you pick the right people, man, you don't have to. I'm just like a traffic cop that way there, over there, do that.
So just going back to the size of the production, because obviously I think everybody knows in the last few years, film budgets have been slashed. You said this is an independent film. You said it cost $40 million, which, again, it's hard to believe that.
That's actually 27 US, but then once you take the rebate and the dollar exchange, it works out to about 40.
So how does that work in terms of, is that just take very careful planning? And I'm assuming, you tell me, is there a lot, in the editing process, are you rewriting the movie as are you cutting scenes? Are there things that
of course
you've got to be kind of brutal and take stuff out that you thought worked great in the script and maybe even works great on screen, but it's not helping the story?
You do the edit in the beginning if you can. You edit the script so you don't have to film it and drop it on the floor later. So you extract as much as you can that you don't think you'll need. Of course, you'll never be perfect on that count. So afterwards, you go in and we clip some stuff, of course, that was slowing it down. I wished it could have even been faster in the first act, but I kind of like the structure as two acts, and I sort of always imagined that it was kind of like a Norman Rockwell painting being introduced to an Hieronymus Bosch painting, and then taking the Rockwell characters out of the Rockwell painting and dropping them into hell in the Hieronymus Bosch, and that sort of, for me, is the power of the film in a way, because it's kind of like the death of innocence in an era that was less complicated and sweeter, and to show what war does to people, I think, and for an audience to empathize what veterans must have to suffer when they go there and come back, and they've seen some horrible things that marks them indelibly for the rest of their lives. They're never the same. We showed it to a lot of disabled veterans, and they thought it was very cathartic, and they were moved by it. We had counselors and stuff in case we had triggered any PTSD episodes, but we found that, they were affected by it, cathartic, but they found it therapeutic as well, because they felt like if other people saw it, they might understand some of what their plight
Yeah, I got to say, I mean, I think we've all seen a lot of war movies. For me personally, the battle sequences is about as real as I've ever felt, as close as I've ever felt I could be to knowing what that must feel like. So that's a real tribute. Very, very, very good.
Watched a lot of footage and read a lot of accounts. There's a very good history book by a man named Pfeiffer that I really liked. I can't remember the name of the book. It's got a red cover. But I read the thing like crazy, and it kind of got to me in a very personal way because it had a very personal, from the men's mouths kind of thing, and they told you how they felt, and they told you what was going on. It was the greatest loss of life in the Pacific Theater, and it preempted the bomb being dropped because they didn't want to see that many people lost again, but. And the Japanese called it a steel rain, and it was the first time napalm was used in a lot of those to get them out of the caves and stuff. So it was a brutal and a bitter conflict, and many people died in the space of less than 3 months. I mean, it was like 10 weeks, I think, and it was just horrific. But
and as a filmmaker, it's obviously incredibly violent for certainly the second half of it. Is there a moment where you wonder, or are you playing around in the editing room, is this too violent? Is it not violent enough?
Sure.
Do I need to be this violent to really tell the story? I mean, what's the process there?
Yeah, there's a process. And, you temper some things. I tempered this. And
this is the tempered version.
Yes, it is. Because you don't want people running out screaming, but at the same token, you want to give them an idea of what it feels like to be in a foxhole. So, yeah, we could have gone further, but there's a place where you have to stop. Yeah, I want to keep you in your seats,
So we're going to open up to some audience questions in a second. I guess I have one last question from me. Obviously, the film is on a great track. I know it went to Venice. It got a 10-minute standing ovation. It's getting incredible buzz, if that's the right word, and people are loving it. Certainly, I felt like this audience loved it, and everything I heard before tonight. I was almost nervous that I was getting too much hype, and it certainly exceeded my expectations still. When do you feel like, as a filmmaker, I mean, is that something you felt like you kind of could see coming for a long time? When do you, I guess the editing is probably part of this question too. How long's the first cut? And I'm assuming that's, I want to say a mess, but it's huge, and it's time to roll up your sleeves and try and find the movie, or not?
The first rough assembly, I don't know, 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. But I think we got it down to about 2:10 without credits, But so you dropped a half an hour someplace.
So do you feel like, as from the moment you're working on the script right through, that you're onto a winner, or you don't think about it like that? You just want to make the story and let other people decide? It's
interesting, your sensibilities and then the sensibilities of all the other artists you work with come into play here, and there's a consensus, and you commit certain things to celluloid, given that you're limited by time and money, but that's what you end up with. But to a degree, apart from all that, a film kind of makes itself, like the camera has a brain, and so, when you finally slap it together, you kind of look at it really the first time to see how it works. And it was, it wasn't working perfectly, but I knew it was going to work when I first looked at it. So then we just, roll the sleeves up and trim the fat and enhance other things and swap out takes and juggle things around or do what you have to do. And,
you have your collaborators, your producers, I'm assuming, people watching it, obviously the editors.
Sure.
Closely involved.
We had one producer who really hung in, called Bill Mechanic. There's a lot of producers up here, but Bill got his hands dirty.
Right. So he was in the screenings and giving feedback. And
he was there the whole time.
And what's your take as a filmmaker on? Do you show it to audience, friends and family, any of that kind of stuff?
That kind of stuff. I mean, it's good to get an outside view and another pair of eyes on it, because you lose your objectivity after a while. You start to see the frames, I mean, I presume there's directors here. You know what it's like. It's like you watch something so many times you think you're going to die, and you begin not to trust your own eyes and ears anymore. So your own perceptions are, up for grabs. But
well done. How about any questions from the audience?
Not a one. Hey, here he goes.
Let me just repeat the question for everybody. So the documentary footage at the end, was that added just was it just an idea, or what was behind that?
Well, I think even before we finished filming, we had toyed with the idea, because I'd watched that documentary online, and that Terry Benedict did. You had the real Desmond and all the real guys. I think it's an hour and a half, this documentary, so there's a bunch of stuff in there that came in really handy. I watched it a couple of times. It's also a moving document, because you're talking to the real guy, and we just used tiny little bits of it at the end to sort of like pay tribute to Desmond and tell you like it's true, and that's what happened. I mean, when it seems really corny sometimes, it's not corny. It's like what happened, but it was another time and another era.
This question here.
Well,
so the question is, what did Mel tell everybody else in those sequences and the artists, what his vision was for how those scenes should go?
Well, I told him I wanted to investigate the space between the man and the bullet and have things fairly confrontive, and to be on ground level. They said, "You want helicopters?" I went, "No helicopters. Let's just stay in the dirt." The battlefield was only 100 meters by 75 meters, so it wasn't much bigger than a football field. And it was in the middle of a dairy farm in New South Wales. And so, staying close to the ground was better. You didn't see the cattle in the farmhouses. And the gum trees, although you do see some gum trees, but I bet you didn't know what they were. You ignore the gum tree when you see some guy getting shot, I guess. But
how much of those sequences were VFX and how much was like real stunts?
There was a lot of real, actual, on the set effects. They had these things called box bombs that are about the size of a shoe box. And they got quite a bang. I mean, but you can get like 3 feet away from these things. You can run through the middle of it and just,
Not get hurt.
Yeah, burn your nose hairs. I mean, it's like going to the barber, so the stunt guys were fooling around with that. They got all tooled up and they said, "This is surprisingly, it looks amazing."
I'm assuming that stuff has to be incredibly well planned for safety reasons, or
absolutely, yeah. Oh no,
so
safety.
It's like everybody knows exactly what's going to go on.
Oh yeah, no. I'm on. I'd say remember the S word and safety. If anybody does anything unsafe, I'll kill them. And it's and that's been the story all along. The Braveheart stuff we used to do, man. I think we had a hangnail and a twisted ankle. It was really amazing that nobody got hurt. You see, because they're drilled in safety, and you tell them you have to educate people, all the extras and stuff. You don't really have to hit a guy. You don't even have to get close. The camera sees this. Close one eye. Everybody close one eye. And you close one eye and you just sort of go like this. Look, it looked like I'm putting it into my ear, doesn't it? You can miss by a mile, So, education is required so everyone cools out, and so it's really safe.
But I'm assuming some VFX, you see a guy do a 360 in the air. I mean, that's like a little bit of embellishment, but mostly real.
That's
real.
Real.
That's real.
That's
wow. Okay.
The only CGI there is we erased the cable that's yanking him.
Oh wow.
It's over a big pulley on a crane somewhere.
Huge.
So you're going yoink, and the guy's like, he knows it's coming, and he's got 3 twists around him, and he's like, he just goes flying off.
Amazing.
But it's basic, really. It's old fashioned. It's like the Roman theater. Put them on a crane. The Deus Ex Machina.
Any questions right here?
Well, on both questions, it was an independent film and there wasn't much time, so there was like a week of boot camp where they got drills and were talked to, and we didn't put them through hell or dump ice water on them or make them light matches on their faces. Nothing like that. It was like just do what you can in a short amount of time, and the amount of takes was dictated by insurance, and you had to be very judicious about that because time was of the essence. For 59 days, we had to get a lot of bang for our buck, So we were moving fast. Sometimes I wasn't very happy. I was like, but.
What about other rehearsal, like the acting rehearsal, the emotional stuff, not so much the boot camp? I mean, are you a big director on getting people together for a couple of weeks, or they just show up and rehearse on set, or what's the deal?
We don't leave until the actors get it right. And fortunately for me, these were very high caliber actors, so we didn't have to fool around if it wasn't quite right. One day we just stopped. I said, there's something wrong with the scene. And I went to Vince's trailer and I sat down with he and Andrew. We rewrote the whole scene.
Which scene was that?
It's the one after he gets beat up and the sergeant goes in and talks to him and all that. So we rewrote it in the trailer. And,
Wow.
and then we went, it took us an hour and a half to figure all the motivations and the words and everything, and we went back and shot it. So sometimes you got to be working pretty fast. We did that a few times, but, it's...
But it pays off.
It does pay off.
And I'm talking about rehearsal in prep. Do you get the actors together before you've even started shooting?
Oh, yeah.
Talk about the characters?
Sure. You see them individually, together sometimes, and just sound them out, see what they say, and then tell you what do you think, and ask them questions. And, it gets sorted out pretty quick. They get a good idea of who they are and where they're going and what they're doing.
I saw another question right here in the front. So the question is, did Mel watch other war movies as research for this one?
No. I have favorites that I kind of remember. I got a pretty good visual memory. I'll remember you till no. So you remember stuff. So I just remember cool things about, the sands of Iwo Jima, or what was the other, Objective Burma. You remember that film? It had Errol Flynn in it. It was kind of cool because it was 50s, and it had a more cynical view of war and what America and Japanese had just been through. And it was kind of more cruel in a way, about atrocity and stuff like that. So, but without showing it because it was the 50s. But that, and of course, I remember the beginning of Private Ryan and stuff like that. So, subconsciously, I'm sure that everything I've ever seen was kind of stored in some recessive file down in the bowels of my brain box.
But you also want to create your own kind of view of it and come up with your own way of telling it, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like, you get ideas and you try and execute them and see if they work, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So.
Well, guys, we're getting the wrap up here. Do we have time for one more question? Right here, this gentleman's been waiting.
Yes. Yes. In fact, and we didn't put that in the story, but they couldn't get up on ropes and stuff like that, so they requested cargo nets from the Navy. And one of the things that happened, and this is another true story, that you just, if you did this, the Army that Desmond was with actually had to go and install the nets and, fix them on top of the cliff. And they said, who wants to volunteer to go and put the nets up? And nobody raised their hand, and Desmond said, I'll do it. And there is a photograph of him standing up on top of this ridge with everybody else down below, and he's just standing up there like this. It's amazing. He was an amazingly courageous person. Because he didn't just do this in Okinawa. He did this in Guam and in the Philippines as well. He'd already earned the respect of his brothers by crawling into enemy fire. Didn't matter if there was somebody in trouble. He didn't care. He valued their life more than his, and he'd go and get them. So it's not really a war movie. It's kind of a love story.
On that note, Mel, incredible film. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being here.
Thanks, John.
Thank you all very much, and thanks to the DGA for having the screening.
Thanks for listening to this DGA Q&A. Check out past episodes of the podcast by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts or on our website at dga.org/podcast. We'll have a lot more episodes coming your way over the next several weeks, so stay tuned. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to The Director's Cut on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, or our SoundCloud page so you won't miss an episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.